In the last part, we learned how to form melodies around basic triad shapes up the neck, linking related chord positions with a melodic line. Now, there are a few avenues we could take in terms of developing this concept, but in this lesson, we're going to explore a simple scale harmonization technique, initially using those familiar triad forms that will allow us to more fluidly connect harmony and melody through common chord changes and keys. First, let's build our harmonic foundations. For this example, A major will be our key center, but as always, the sequence of shapes we use can be repositioned for different keys and chords. More on that later. As we learned in the previous part, we can play this same major triad in 3 inversion positions up the neck. We're now going to add 2 additional major triads from the A major scale, the first being the 4th degree chord of the scale, D major in this case. Just like with the tonic A major, we can play the 4th degree D major in 3 inversion positions, using the familiar triad shapes. The other additional major triad is built on the 5th degree of the scale, E major in this case. Once again with the 3 positions. If we sequence the inversions of these 4 and 5 chords along the neck, resolving around the 1, we can create a simple harmonization of the scale and key. Try different sequences to familiarize yourself with the triad positions. At the same time, be aware of the melody that forms on the 2nd string as you move through the shapes. An example. In that example, I used slides, hammer-ons, and pull-offs to move between some positions, using a barred index finger where necessary. When playing in a chord melody context, think about involving techniques typically used for lead playing between chord positions. So, every tone of the major scale and any melody that might come from it can effectively be harmonized around the 3 inversions of the 1, 4, and 5 triads. This also includes its relative minor scale and modes, which we'll get to later. Using these triad positions as harmonic destinations, start by playing around with some simple melodic movement between them on the 2nd string. For example. Obviously, the aim is not to limit ourselves to creating melodies and harmonies from the major scale, but it does give us a practical and accessible starting point for developing our chord melody skills. Go through the same process for the top 3 strings, first by harmonizing the scale using 1, 4, 5. And as these shapes can be seen as connected to the lower 3 string shapes from earlier, we also have the option of a 4-part harmonization of the scale, or making the 1st string available for the melody when needed. So, our harmonic foundation so far can be seen as a basic 3 or 4-part harmonization of the scale. Before we start expanding our melodic roadmap, let's take some time to explore how the 1, 4, 5 harmonic foundations we've built correspond to different chords in the key. These 1, 4, 5 triads we learned will work over all the chords in a natural or diatonic key. To demonstrate this, first let's assign each chord in the scale, A major in this case, its most closely related triad out of 1, 4, or 5. Starting with our tonic chord, A major, we can connect this to the 1 triad, A major itself. The 2 chord, B minor, can be connected to the 4 triad. The 3 chord, C sharp minor, can be connected to the 5 triad. The 4 chord, D major, can be connected to the 4 triad. The 5 chord, E major, can be connected to the 5 triad. The 6 chord and relative minor tonic, F sharp minor, can be connected to the 1 triad. The 7 chord, G sharp diminished, can be connected to the 5 triad. This alone demonstrates just how versatile these 3 simple 1-4-5 triads are in harmonizing the key. Taking it further, we can move around these central triads using 1-4-5 as a means of creating a more melodic expression of the chord in question. For example, here I'm playing over the 2 chord B minor. This sequence could also get reharmonized comfortably over the 4 chord D major. To really hear how 1-4-5 aids the melodic voice of our harmony, we can try them over a diatonic chord progression. For example, in that example, when resolved on the tonic chord, I played through the 5 triad, which gives the tonic an especially restful major ninth flavor. So we can use 1-4-5 as the basis of our block chord melody for accompaniment. Spend time learning the 1-4-5 positions in other keys, and you'll have a strong harmonic foundation for creating flowing, multi-part melodic movements over common chord progressions. These triads will also accompany the natural minor key effectively. All we have to do is learn the concept of relative major and minor tonic to find our 1-4-5 triad positions. For example, the A major key triads will work in its relative F sharp minor key, since both keys share the same 7 chords. For both major and minor keys, we can also add in another 1-4-5 relationship using minor triads, giving us more voicing options within our key. This time we're focusing on the minor chords within the scale as our relative minor key 1-4-5. Just like the 3 major triads, the 3 minor triads will cover every tone in our scale and diatonic key. Starting with the 6 chord, F sharp minor in this case, the 2 chord or B minor, and finally the 3 chord or C sharp minor. Just like before, these minor triads can be scaled out and used to harmonize a melody over all the chords in a diatonic key. Here we start in the major key and resolve to the relative minor. You'll notice that the difference in how these minor triads interact with chords versus the major triads in the same position can be subtle. For example, here is a sequence using the major 1-4-5 triads over A major. And here's a similar sequence with the same melodic line using the relative minor triads. Another example over D major. This kind of basic reharmonization, switching between major and minor 1-4-5 triads over a given chord, is a great initial ear training exercise for picking out these subtle harmonic colours. Of course, we'll naturally end up combining them in sequences, choosing the appropriate shape for serving the melody. With our harmonic foundations in place, we can now start to expand our melodic landscape around them. Each harmony part can be connected to a related scale pattern. By breaking up the scale into segments or boxes surrounding the triad positions, any melodic note will be within reach and in close proximity to our chord shape. In a coming part, we'll start to use these patterns to further colour and connect movements of harmony and melody. In the meantime, keep exploring and building on the harmonic foundations we've established. Remember, if you're fingerpicking solo, you can always use the lowest 3 strings as the open bass for your chord changes, typically played with the thumb. In standard tuning alone, the 4th, 5th and 6th strings can be used as the bass for a number of progressions, here detailed with their respective scale. You can try different sequences of the 3 chords, for example ADE, DAE, EDA, etc. This will allow you to explore the 3 and 4 part shapes we've looked at solo. If this lesson has helped you, please consider joining my Patreon, where you can get access to a growing library of exclusive content, vote on new lessons you want to see, and get priority answers to your questions. Thank you so much for your time and support. Cheers.